In the year 776 BC, a group of athletes gathers in a dusty valley to run a single race in honor of a god who throws lightning bolts. This is nearly 3,000 years before your great-great-grandparents are born. Fast forward a few centuries, and a giant wooden horse is rolling toward the gates of Troy to end a 10-year war. Ancient Greece is not a boring chapter in a textbook. It is the origin story of how you live today. But how did a collection of tiny, bickering cities manage to build a world that still exists in your pocket, your government, and your sports? Welcome to History Bites, where we take the wildest, weirdest, most jaw-dropping moments in history and explain them fast. If you love the kind of history that sounds impossible but actually happened, subscribe. Imagine living in a place where your country is actually a single city surrounded by a wall. This is the world of the city-state. In ancient Greece, there is no single king of Greece. Instead, you have hundreds of independent polis. Think of it like a massive league of rival sports teams. They speak the same language and worship the same gods, but they spend most of their time trying to outdo each other. The two biggest rivals are Athens and Sparta. Here's the part nobody puts in textbooks. These two cities are so different they might as well be from different planets. In Athens, the goal is to be a well-rounded citizen. They invent democracy around 508 BC. Imagine if instead of a principal making every rule in your school, every single student gets to vote on what is for lunch and when the holidays are. That is Athens. They build the Parthenon, they write plays that people still perform today, and they spend their afternoons arguing about the meaning of life. But while Athens is busy thinking, Sparta is busy training. In Sparta, life is a permanent boot camp. When a boy turns 7, he leaves home to join the Agoge. This is a military school where the main subjects are stealth, survival, and combat. Imagine your middle school, but instead of math, you learn how to survive in the woods with no shoes. Spartans do not care about fancy buildings or long speeches. They care about the phalanx. This is a battle formation where soldiers stand shoulder to shoulder, overlapping their shields like the scales of a dragon. It makes them almost impossible to break. And here's where it gets really wild. These two rival cities have to team up to save the world. Around 490 BC, the Persian Empire decides to invade. Persia is the superpower of the day. They have millions of soldiers and more gold than anyone can count. To the Greeks, this is like a local high school football team being told they have to play against the pros. At the Battle of Marathon, the Athenians are outnumbered 2-1. They don't have enough men to cover the whole field, so they thin out their center and beef up their sides. When the Persians push through the middle, the Athenian wings fold in like a giant trap. The Greeks win. A messenger named Phidippides runs 26 miles back to Athens to shout victory before he collapses. Stop and think about that for a second. Every time someone runs a marathon today, they are literally retracing the steps of a 2,500-year-old military emergency. 10 years later, the Persians come back with an even bigger army. This is when we see the famous 300 Spartans at the Pass of Thermopylae in 480 BC. They know they cannot win, but they hold the narrow pass for 3 days to give the rest of Greece time to prepare. It is one of the most famous stands in history. Shortly after, the Greek navy wins a massive sea battle at Salamis. The Persian threat is over. Now this is where history gets genuinely strange. You would think the Greeks would be best friends after saving each other. Instead, they immediately go back to fighting. Athens enters a golden age. This is the time of Socrates, the philosopher who asks so many annoying questions that the city eventually votes to execute him. It's the time of Pericles, who uses the money meant for the Greek navy to build the most beautiful marble buildings in the world. But Sparta is watching, and they are jealous. They start a massive civil war called the Peloponnesian War that lasts for 27 years. By the time it ends in 404 BC, every city in Greece is broke, exhausted, and vulnerable. Most people don't know this part. While the big cities are fighting, a kingdom in the north called Macedonia is getting stronger. Their king, Philip II, realizes that the Greek city-states have perfected the art of war, but they are too small to stay independent forever. He conquers them. But the real story starts when his son takes over in 336 BC. His name is Alexander. Alexander is 20 years old when he becomes king. He has been tutored by Aristotle, one of the smartest men to ever live. Alexander decides he doesn't just want to rule Greece, he wants to rule everything. He leads his army across the Hellespont into Asia. For the next 12 years, Alexander the Great never loses a single battle. He marches his army over 11,000 miles. That is like walking from New York to Los Angeles and back, twice. He builds dozens of cities and names, almost all of them Alexandria. He spreads Greek language, Greek theater, and Greek science from Egypt all the way to the borders of India. And the craziest thing, it actually worked. Even though Alexander dies at the young age of 32, the Hellenistic world he creates lasts for centuries. People in Egypt and Afghanistan start reading Greek plays and using Greek coins. Here is the big reveal that changes how we look at the map. We often think of history as one empire replacing another. When the Romans eventually conquer Greece around 146 BC, you might think Greek history ends. But it doesn't. The Romans are so obsessed with Greek culture that they basically copy-paste it. They adopt the Greek gods but give them new names. They hire Greek teachers for their kids. They use Greek architecture for their temples. The Roman Empire becomes a giant delivery system for Greek ideas. Ancient Greece ended thousands of years ago, but it never really went away. Every time you see a building with marble columns, every time you watch a movie about a hero's journey, and every time someone votes in an election, you are seeing a ghost of ancient Greece. They were a small group of people on a rocky peninsula who decided that human reason and individual bravery were the most important things in the world. History is full of moments that sound impossible, but every single one of them actually happened. That's what makes it better than fiction. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. We post every week, and every video will teach you something your history teacher hasn't mentioned yet. And drop your answer in the comments. If you had to live in ancient Greece, would you rather be a philosopher in Athens or a warrior in Sparta? The ancient Greeks proved that even the smallest cities can leave the biggest footprints.